guys, it's your girl Sharon Strong, and today we're going to be having a very special guest on my channel. His name is Sandhu, and he is from Team Boss. For those of you associated with bodybuilding and fitness, definitely know about him. But for those of you who don't, Harry is an international coach and a personal trainer who has trained dozens of international athletes, right from amateur to pro, and putting the best physiques on stage and making sure that most of them take home first place. So I myself was coached by Harry for my bikini competition back in May, and hands down it was one of the most excellent experience and a learning curve in my journey. So let's move on and talk to him. So moving on to the next question, it's something that I get asked a lot, and I would love to know your opinion on it, and it's to do with genetics, specifically our Indian genetics. I have a lot of my subscribers ask me how to combat their supposedly crappy Indian genetics. So my question to you is that, is Indian genetics really that bad for building muscle? Like, is it predisposed to not building enough muscle? And also, should we even care about genetics, or should we just move on with our training?
I think that's a fantastic question. I've been thinking about doing a post on this for a little while, the role of genetics and how it all works. Let me just have my glass. Let me have a sip of wine.
Oh yes, please.
Okay? I'm just getting all the antioxidants out of the wine. Okay, so let's.
You look more lean.
Right. Okay.
Anyways.
Okay, so before I actually say that, I'm going to give a bit of a scientific. I'm going to set the platform scientifically, okay?
Okay.
Now, a very short crash course in how the muscle is built, okay? This is extremely important information for a lot of people, okay? Muscle is built by one thing, is the key thing that sits at the top, is muscle protein synthesis. Muscle protein synthesis is the act in your body which builds muscle, which triggers everything, okay? Now, there have been credible studies done, right? I have to sort of explain this in as simple as possible because this is very key information, so I want readers to understand. You take two people, right? You get one person to train, okay. Your highest muscle protein synthesis is after training. Once you've trained, you give the nutrition, that is when your muscle protein synthesis is supposed to be at the highest.
Yeah.
Okay? That is when you're going to build the most amount of muscle. So you break the tissue down during training. So when you feed the nutrients post-training, that's when you initiate and you trigger that muscle building process. Okay?
Right.
So that's when your muscle protein synthesis or muscle building process is going to be at its peak. Right? So if you take, this is how powerful genetics are. This is how powerful people don't realize, okay? You take two people from different backgrounds. You could take two Indians, take two Punjabis, take one Aussie, one Indian, one American, one European, whatever, it doesn't matter. You could have two twins also, right? So if you put to say one person who's just trained and they've had the nutrition and everything, if their muscle protein synthesis might get to level 5 out of 10. If 10 was your peak and 5 was your halfway there, right? So he's probably somewhere average. Now, on the other side, there are genetic freaks without lifting a weight, without doing anything. If they have a meal, their muscle protein synthesis is still higher than the person who's trained.
Right.
Without even lifting a weight. Now, to put that in simple terms, in layman terms, now, we all know that one person. We all know that one female, right? We all know that part of my language, okay? We all know that one skinny bitch. She can eat whatever she wants. We all have that cousin. We all have that auntie. Or we all know someone in a relationship. We all know that girl in the gym. Or we all know that woman in the gym. She can eat whatever she wants. And she's not lying. You've seen these people, right? You know that one person.
Right.
They can eat whatever they want. And they're still thin.
Right.
On the other side, there are people, even if they take an extra sip of water, they have an extra gasp of air, it seems to go straight to the hips or straight to the stomach. These are facts. I mean, we don't need any research studies for this. We don't need to go into. We have seen this, for instance, time immemorial. Okay, we have seen this in our houses, everywhere. We all have that one relative who's been dieting, who's doing everything under the sun. She just can't shift the weight. That's the genetics.
Yeah.
Genetics plus hormones as well, especially women. your hormones can change dramatically. Pre-birth, post-birth, pre-menopause, post-menopause. All these factors are very critical. So genetic predisposition is, of course, is a very critical component. Then your hormonal changes, shifts in your life are very critical as well. Forget lifestyle factors and all that. Forget all the other variables. Let's say all things being equal. Your diet is equal. Everything is. Those things you can't change.
Right.
The hormonal changes sometimes your body will go through after having a baby as a female. No matter how good your diet is, no matter what you do, you can't manage those.
Yeah.
My wife is one of those people. So it's just one of those facts. Now, and by the same token, and we know, like, we as a trainer, I think any trainer would be lying if they haven't had a client where they did everything that they could under the sun, right? And they just couldn't get this person super lean without using drugs. Even with drugs, sometimes you struggle. By the same token, you have people, no matter, we all know that person. You see that person who's built like a tank. Okay, steroids have come into the picture in the last 30, 40 years,
right.
50 years, okay? But you go back in history 60 years ago, 70 years ago. We don't have to go back 400 years ago, 200 years. We can go back and look in the picture 60 years ago. There's one man, he's 6 feet 4 inches, and he's a monster. He's built like in India, Dara Singh, right? Or you take anyone, all this. And then you have one person who's just so genetics, of course. Now that's the one part.
Okay.
Right, so genetics makes a huge difference. So you can put two people on the same diet, same training protocol, even better. One person, there are laborers who are eating 2 meals a day and they're stronger than other people.
Right.
Who are doing everything in the gym.
More ripped
right
too,
now, now let's come to the Indian genetics. Okay, I might cop a bit of flack for saying that, but the thing is, we can't actually deny the facts. Right, we only have the best information sometimes, actually, without going into it. We only have to look at the facts. But let's go back 20, 30 years, right? If anything, see, the nutrition progressively has gotten worse. Okay, we might have made a lot of advances in supplementation, but the nutrition has progressively gotten worse because there's a lot of contamination, the quality of the soil has gone down, the foods aren't as nutrient dense as they were once upon a time. So you can't say that the diet has actually gotten better, the diet has gotten worse. Yes, we've made some advancement in supplements, but we haven't made advancement in supplements to the point that where they are of steroidal level. Where they're going to provide super physiology. If that was the case, then there are so many people spending millions of dollars on supplements. Why aren't they all shredded? Why aren't they walking with a six-pack?
Right.
Now let's peel the onion back a little bit, right? You go back to see Indians by genetics, our average males are between sort of 5'6" to 5'10" feet, right? You compare them to sort of Eastern European who are 6 feet and above. You start comparing them to Black Americans. Okay, talk about genetics, okay? This is such a vast topic, we can spend 2 hours, but I'm going to try to keep it as condensed. Okay, since time immemorial, Kenyans, Ethiopians, these people have dominated long-distance races, okay? Black Americans have dominated athletics. I can't even remember when was the last time a white person won 100-meter sprints. Since Carl Lewis and Ben Johnson and Usain Bolt and Asafa Powell and all these guys and Justin Gatlin and even 400 meters, 200 meters, it is power sports are all dominated by Black Americans. You take bodybuilding as for instance, we've only had a couple of non-Black Mr. Olympias. We've had Arnold Schwarzenegger. Before that, once the blacks entered the scene since 1980, Lee Haney came along board, and then it was Lee Haney, then Dorian Yates came for 5 years, then so Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler won a couple of times. But and you look at strength sports, power sports, it's all Eastern Europeans. Right. Now Indians, you take chess, it's all Indians. Right. Okay. This might not make many people happy, but hey, you take all them. You take mathematicians, Aryabhatta, and all these guys. Hey, we invented the zero. Let's just take credit for something. So to say, and why didn't we have all these amazing physiques as recently as up until 20 years ago, even 10 years ago? All of a sudden, you have all these people who are walking around like with, I've got the aesthetic of the gods, and I'm like this, hate is going to hate and all that, Your genetics haven't transformed so much. Your parents are skinny. all these 99% people you see on social media and all that, their parents are skinny. None of them even lifted a dumbbell. None of them even, the short answer is no. Our genetics aren't predisposed to be like huge as bodybuilders, right? Okay. You're always going to have an odd Sangram Chogule. You always will have an odd Premchand Degra. And all the people, you still, even Premchand Degra, with all due respect to him, for him to come out and say that, hey, he's, it's like, it's questionable, so the things like that, it's okay, So it's, all these things are questionable, you can say whatever you want, but that's the reality of it,
Reality, yeah.
Now the thing is, look, we don't have the genetics to be world-class bodybuilders.
Okay.
We do have the genetics with all the PED help, right? 9 out of 10 amazing physiques that you see on social media, globally, I'm not talking just India alone.
Yeah.
A lot of physiques, especially in India, they're all on gear. There are probably 5% people who, anyone who's getting up on stage in this day and age in any decent competitions, they're all enhanced.
Okay.
So no, the short answer is we unfortunately don't have the genetics. Like if that was the case, okay, if our genetics are, why aren't we doing anything in Olympics? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, genetics are genetics at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
if we can pack on so much muscle in bodybuilding,
Yeah.
why haven't we able to produce anything worthwhile since PT Usha took 4 gold medals in Asiatics? Our greatest victories are limited to Commonwealth Games and Asian Games.
Yeah.
That is about it. You'll have an odd person, okay, we have a shooter or something, but we just don't have the genetic makeup to get in there and do the 100-meter sprints or 400 meters or whatever other strength sports are. Which is boxing, it's a skill-oriented sport.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we've done so well. But it's okay. My wife is very concerned that I'm going to say something politically incorrect.
So should people hold genetics as a reason to train differently, or how should people approach it?
No, okay. You don't have to train anything differently. I think what needs to be changed is people's expectations need to be sort of educated a little bit. So there's a gulf of there's a gulf between the reality of what's happening and the expectations people have. A normal person sees this guy with a six-pack walking around and selling protein supplements and saying, I'm all natural and I take this and I eat my 5 meals of chicken a day.
Right.
Of course, you can build a very healthy, respectable physique. But to actually get up there and have 17-inch arms and walk around 80 kilos shredded with six-pack, 12 months a year, and to say that you're all natural, that is disgraceful. I think that is unethical, that is immoral. So people need to sort of have the expectations to be sort of relegated a little bit. They need to be brought down a little bit because they're getting misled. I get messages every time. I want to look like this guy. I want to look like this. Can I look like this in 12 weeks? I'm sure. You want to jump on and do like 10 rounds of steroids? Yeah, you can. And that's the biggest problem. Look, you can. Of course, you can be healthy. No question about it.
Yeah.
But walk around having 17-inch arms and at 7% body fat with 17-inch arm and 6-packs is at 80 kilos is not possible for 99% people. That's the reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for those insights. So hope you guys enjoyed that. To find more of Harry and follow his work, don't forget to like his Facebook page, Team Boss Bodybuilding. And if you're interested in personal training and online coaching, do follow him as well. That is all from me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't, your girl, stay strong.